Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Aisha. It's been so long since I filmed a video and so long since I uploaded a video, but I've been really busy for like work and responsibilities and stuff. And yeah, I want to do better because this is not the year that I slack on YouTube. It's not the year. But anyway, so this video is going to be about my January wrap up. In January, I completed 9 books. I wanted to finish 10 books, but life was life and I couldn't just finish it. But I did this like wrap up thing on Instagram where I separated the books that I completed, the ones that I DNF'd, and the books that I was still currently reading, like into February. So I'm just going to share that. But we're starting with the books that I completed. So at the beginning of the month, I started off reading In the Company of Men by Veronique Tajo. This book was a book club pick, so it was kind of like easy to get into because I didn't feel like reading, to be honest, at the beginning of the year because again, so I just figured, yeah, starting out with a book club pick that I know that I kind of have to finish would, catalyze me into doing more reading, and it did that because I really enjoyed the book. In the Company of Men examines different narratives surrounding the Ebola outbreak that happened in West Africa between 2014 and 2016, and this book is translated actually by the author and one other person, John Cullen, so they translated it in conjunction. And yeah, so I don't even know how to explain. Like, you can imagine, this book is very like heartbreaking because it examines something very important, which is an epidemic. Like, this is a serious disease that people died from it, and the author has just skillfully, explored that incidence from different perspectives. So the book started off with 2 boys, going into the forest and hunting bats, sleeping bats, because of the hunger that they were experiencing. And so I like that the book started off with that particular narrative because it shows how, serious illnesses and the idea of like human beings going out of their way to hunt wild animals can be a result of like, colonialism, in this case because it's an African country, and poverty and just classism and all of those isms. And yeah, the story goes on to explore the outbreak from different perspectives. So we had the perspective of a baobab tree. The baobab tree was the narrator. We also have the perspective of Ebola itself. So Ebola was telling its own version of the story. Then the perspective of bats. We have the perspective of the healthcare personnel that has to disinfect everything when the healthcare personnel go in to take the dead bodies of people that have died because of Ebola, and also perspective of like people that survived from Ebola. Yeah, it's a very painful book, but I enjoyed the writing. I wrote in my very short review that Tajo has brilliantly captured the oral pain grief of the Ebola epidemic. I really liked how she used different non-traditional perspectives to tell the story. So like I said, the baobab tree, the bats, the Ebola virus. And me personally, I just love how it examines, those isms that drive things like this. Even though not everybody experienced Ebola, people can still relate to this story because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars because it was an amazing book. So I started off with my first Kelly Young book for the year, because if you're on this channel, you already know that I love Kelly Young because I read a couple of her books last year. So I read Parachutes by Kelly Young. I listened to it in audio form, and I also read the e-copy, like I was reading it in conjunction. And yeah, this book is basically the story of Chinese students that are sent abroad to America to complete their high schools. They are called parachutes. That's like the name that they call them in the community. So parachute is a term that is used for Chinese teenagers that their parents send them to America to complete their high school. So yeah, this book follows the perspective of 2 girls, a parachute and a, I believe, Filipino girl that she's American, but she's American Filipino at the same time. The book basically just talks about the experiences of these Chinese teenagers, the way that their parents send them to this foreign country and how it exposes them to a lot of trauma as children. General overview of things that were explored include abuse. So it can be physical, domestic, mental, verbal abuse that these children, these parachutes, experience. There's also TW for rape, sexual assault, homophobia, racism, just, imagine all of the mix. I really like how this book alternates between the perspective of the two girls. So I can't remember their names now, I really can't. But the parachute, the girl that comes from China, and the Filipino American girl. Because we have two varying perspectives, we also get like the perspective of class, because the parachute, the girl, she's very rich. I mean, that's why her parents sent her to America, because they could afford it. But the other girl, the Filipino American, she's relatively well to do, but like by American standards, she's not living the American dream. So it was nice to like read your perspective. The only problem I had with this book was that, and not everybody will agree with me on this, but the only problem I had with the book was that the author dropped a trigger warning at the beginning of the book for rape and sexual assault, and it took a while for that to feature in the book, and it really gave me anxiety. That was the only problem I had with it. But the writing is exquisite and captivating, as is the forte of Kelly Yang. She's very good at writing captivating stories. I really enjoyed it. Not the theme explored, like I enjoyed reading the book, the style, and it also felt like even more personal, because Kelly Yang wrote this book based off of her own experience as a victim of sexual assault and I believe rape when she was in Harvard Law. So yeah, this was a good book. I gave it 4 stars as well. Next book that I completed is Know Your Rights and Claim Them, A Guide for the Youth by Nikki Parker, Amnesty International, and Angelina Jolie. So this book is basically targeted at like young adults, and it covers all sort of child protection laws, like things children need to know to like arm them with the law. At the very least, you have the knowledge of the law to be able to help them out of certain situations. So what I really liked about this book was that they explained what the laws are and how the laws would ideally work, but they also explain the unfortunate reality of how the laws actually work, like the kind of loopholes that people use to escape the law, or how they refuse to acknowledge the law in the way that they treat children. I really like how they did not sugarcoat that, but at the same time you can still tell that they are telling the children that there's still hope. Like, just knowing that this law exists can help you in some instances. Another beautiful thing that they did was that like they told stories of how children, like real life children, have used some of these laws to fight oppression in their societies. So for example, they mentioned the story of Malala Yousaf. I can't pronounce that girl's name, but yeah, Malala, everybody knows Malala, and a bunch of like other children that I really like, them telling their stories. I learned a lot reading this book, but I just feel like young adults are not the only age gap for children. So this book will probably be best read by an adult and fully explain to like younger children that might not be able to fully comprehend what the book is saying. But yeah, if you have a child in your life, I think you should read this book and empower those children. The next book that I read is The House of Shells by Efwa Traore. So again, if you know me with this channel, you know that Efwa Traore's first book, Children with Quickstands, was one of my favorite books for 2021. That was one of the first videos I made on this channel. When I saw that this book was coming out, I just grabbed it. I wanted to read this in last year, but anyway, this book is basically about a young girl. She's 12 but becomes 13 in the book. Her name is Kokumo. She's a Yoruba girl living on Lagos Island in Nigeria. But she's called Cookie. It's a short form of her name. Short form of her name, because I don't know anybody that wears Kokumo that is called Cookie. So Cookie is this shy girl whose mom has remarried, and they've had to move, to live with her mom's new husband. And she's finding it difficult to settle into her environment. She's finding it difficult to make friends because of how shy she is, and she's being bullied at school. So this is Cookie's backstory. When Cookie was born, she was believed to have the spirit of the Abiku. So Abiku is a myth. I don't want to call it a myth, but like a Yoruba myth that basically signifies like a spirit that inhabits children and then causes them to die and then be reborn in a way to torment their parents, kind of thing. So die, reborn, that kind of thing. That's the best way I can explain Abiku. So yeah, because Cookie is believed to have that spirit of the Abiku, some people are paranoid that she might die, but she and her mom, they don't believe that the Abiku exists. Like, they don't believe in it. So because Cookie is finding it difficult to settle into school and she's been bullied, she doesn't have as much friends in school. and she's kind of lonely. So on the eve of her 13th birthday, she was strolling and she stumbled on this abandoned house of shells. In this house of shells, she meets a very fascinating girl called Enilo, and she became friends with Enilo. They relate to so many things. They relate on the same level, and they are very like cute with each other. It's very nice. But then along the way, Cookie makes a terrifying discovery. Like she just makes this very terrifying discovery, and that's kind of like the plot of the book. So it has that mystery kind of vibe to it, and then you get to like see Nigeria through the eyes of a child that's just becoming a teenager. I really liked that. I liked the fresh outlook. I liked the way that lessons were imputed into the book, into the story, which is something that I grew up with. So whenever I would hear like stories when I was growing up, there would be like the moral of the story, like what is the moral of the story kind of thing. So that was really fun. And this book is very fast paced. Like Traore writes very fast paced books. She doesn't know how to write slow books, I think. So yeah, this was a very good book. I gave it 4.5 stars. So the next book I read is Idol Bonin by Rain Osami. I gave this book 3.5 stars, and I kind of sort of mini reviewed this book in one of my vlogs. I would link it in this video. But basically this book is about a high schooler called Akari, and our only passion in life is Oshi. Oshi is a Japanese word for idol, so a J-pop idol. And one day, Oshi is rumored to have assaulted a female fan and is being cancelled. And the term used in Japan to refer to like the cancelling of popular people like that is burning. So, hence idol burning. But yeah, this book is just a character-driven book about Akari coming to terms with idol burning and how that affects her life, being that the only source of passion she has in life is her idol. I thought this was interesting. At the point of reading it, I was a bit annoyed because I don't like character-driven books at all. Like, I don't enjoy them. But I really liked this one because after finishing it and thinking about the book, I appreciated how Akari kind of picked herself up, after having her idol being burnt. And that's in addition to everything that's happening in her life, which I believe she's dyslexic, but it wasn't explicitly stated in the book. But yeah, this was a decent read. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, to be honest. Like, I wasn't blown away. The next book that I read is Jagua by Cyprian Equency, I think. I gave it 3.75 stars because of how slow the beginning of the book is. Like, it dragged in the first half of the book. But basically, this book is about a woman called Jagua. That's her name. She's called Jagua, and she's this shameless hedonist. Like, this woman is absolutely shameless, but I love her. She's such a baddie. Like, Jagua is one of my favorite female characters ever, and I'm surprised that it was a man that wrote this character. Like, I was very surprised when I found out that the author of this book is a man, because male authors generally don't really write very well-rounded female characters, and I really like that this man has crafted Jagua like this. So my favorite thing about Jagua is that she's all of these terrible things. She's a sex worker that doesn't believe like she's doing anything bad, which is debatable, but she she doesn't believe that her sex work should affect the kind of life that she wants for herself. And the kind of life she wants for herself is to settle down with a young boyfriend and get married and have children. That's kind of life she wants for herself. But she lives in this society, an African society in Lagos, Nigeria, that doesn't really believe that that should be the retirement plan of a sex worker. Like, this woman does not want to be realistic, but she's in her 40s. She looks like a baddie. Like, this woman is beautiful. Heads turn whenever Jagua passes by. Like, everybody is just like, Jagua. Okay. But yeah, so because of all of these things, you would not really expect the other kind of character that Jagua has, and that is that she's very empathetic. She gives like advice, like even to people that like the young guys that she sleeps with. She's very like, I wouldn't say like motherly in her love, to be honest, but she like cares for them. She even prays for them. This woman will be blatantly lying, and she will be telling you that I'm not lying now. Oh my days. Oh, and yeah, because this book is set in 1960s Nigeria. You can imagine like all of the vibes and the different settings that you get. There's this scene that reoccurs in the book. It's called the Tropicana. The Tropicana is basically where Banana goes to party, to let down her hair, to meet men that she wants to sell her service to. Just basically like where she socializes. And yeah, Jagua is a well-rounded character. If you haven't read this book, read it. I I'm very I'm very happy that I met this character. I'm not even explaining this book very well. But yeah, just for the fun of experiencing Jaguarana, read this book. Next book that I read is Sisters of the War, Two Remarkable True Stories of Survival and Hope in Syria by Rania Abu Zaid. So this book is a non-fiction, but it centers the stories of four girls from seemingly the two sides of the war in Syria, the war that started with the Arab Spring in 2012 in Syria. I wrote in my very short review that the author has detailed the lives of four girls from two different families, again seemingly on the different sides of the Syrian war. Because of this book, I got a much needed context to the war in Syria, because like, you know, when I was growing up in 2011, 12 and 13, 14, like up until recently, I just always thought, yeah, the war in Syria, there was no like concrete like understanding of what went on, what happened, what were people fighting for. And I kind of got that with this book. I also got, you know, the context of like the religious differences in Syria, coming to understand like the Alawites and why people dislike Assad and why some people also like Assad, kind of thing. I really enjoyed reading this book, even though the only thing I didn't like was that this book said it was targeted at young children, and I don't think young children would be able to fully internalize what the author has written in this book. Another thing that I really like is that the author was actually present in many of the incidences that were detailed in this book. Like, she was physically present with the families in many of the incidences that were detailed in this book, and I thought that was top-notch journalism. Like, for you to be actually there, like you're there, so you understand like the context of the stories that are being told to you, that you're putting into writing. I really appreciated this book, and I really wish the girls, is wherever they are, I really hope that they are doing very well, considering at the very least doing okay. But yeah, this is a very good book. I think you should read it if you want to learn more about like, Syria. Next book that I read is At the Bottom of the River by Jamaica Kincaid. This is a collection of like short writings in pieces. I don't know if this is supposed to be like connected stories. I really don't know. But yeah, my favorite stories from this book is Girl and What I've Been Doing Lately. I really liked those two stories. I liked Girl because it felt like, a mother telling her daughter the kind of things that she should do to please men when she grows up. And I thought that was just sarcasm. Like, I thought it was satire. Like, this woman is just like, this is what society teaches us. So, and I just thought that was well written. And I liked What I've Been Doing Lately because the story comes back in full circle. So it feels very poetic. But generally, this is not the type of book I would read, to be honest. So I read this book for a campaign that one of my Bookstagram friends is doing. It's called We Read Jamaica Kincaid, I believe. If you search for that hashtag, you would see like posts coming up. But yeah, I really enjoyed those two stories. But other than that, this just felt like, getting into the mind of Jamaica Kincaid. I didn't take away anything, extra substantial from reading it. So I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I read is Bookish and the Beast. This was written by Ashley Poston. This kind of had Beauty and the Beast sort of setting, with the backdrop of books and like falling in love with books. I read this because I just wanted something easy to read. There wasn't anything groundbreaking about this book, to be honest. I was a bit irritated because I felt like the female character was telling us that she loved reading more than she actually showed us, and I don't really like that. I want you to show me rather than remind me all the time that you're in love with books. But it also kind of explored grief, like how to handle the grief of like losing a parent. I really appreciated that. I gave it 3 stars, to be honest. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. Other books that I picked up and didn't really finish. I started I'm Waiting for You by Kim Bo Young. I didn't finish it just because, yeah, I DNF'd it. I DNF'd it at 50%, I think. It was just too abstract for me. I just could not deal. Plus, it was too long. Like, if you're going to be that abstract, don't be as long. That's what I think. Another book that I read, I'm moving to February, is The Teller of Secrets by B.C. Jagua, Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, Minty Ali by C.L.R. James, The Patient by Jali Amadou Hamal, and The Green Dean, What Islam Teaches About Protecting the Planet by Ibrahim Abdul Mateen. So yes, that is it for my January wrap up. I have a book haul video that I've been delaying for so long because I got a couple of new books from the end of last year towards January, like the first week in January, and I'm actually very excited to share those books with you. I don't know why it took me so long to record that video as well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video up until this point. Let me know if you've read any of these books and you want to discuss them, or just like drop comments on how interesting you find them if you've read them or you want to read them. Thank you so much again, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.